Hi everyone, thanks for coming and joining us on Ask PlanAcademy. I've got a special guest who's going to join us and answer your question today on Ask PlanAcademy. So today's question is this: how big should my Primavera P6 schedule be? How big as in how many activities? So this is a question I get a lot, and it's also a problem that I see a lot of. We often see massive schedules like 30,000 activities, and there's a major problem with those schedules. When they're so big, they're incredibly difficult to manage and to update. So I'm going to invite Dr. Saleh Mubarak to come in just a second and help you figure out how big and how much detail you should put in your schedule. Saleh, come on in.
All right, thank you, Mike. That was a good question, and I get that question as well. In fact, I remember years ago I was teaching this seminar in a different country, and the chief scheduler came to me and asked me, I want you to look at my schedule and tell me if it is a good schedule. The problem was that schedule was for hydroelectric dam that involves a lot of elements that I wasn't technically capable of understanding. And I wanted to give him a general answer that satisfies him. Now, if you ask this question probably 40 years ago, my answer would have been different, because at that time we didn't have computers and people did everything by a pencil and paper. So there was a high pressure on us not to expand those schedules beyond certain, maybe 100, 150, because manually it would be impossible. Now we have computers, and people went probably to the other extreme, to dividing the project into, as you said, 30,000, 50,000. Some people mentioned to me a project with 100,000 activities. The problem is the management of this project of this size with this details. I want to give you an example here. If I have a building that's 20 floors, and we can see here, this is just a sketch, we have 24 columns, and those columns go all the way from the foundation to the roof. So I want to look at only the concrete items, all right? So how many activities I should have in this? And 20 floor is kind of average project these days, not the largest. We have buildings that are even 100 floors or so, and we have even other types of, like a stadium and other structures that are very complicated. In this, let's start with the I'm going to be using the CSI master format. So at level 2, we can say that we have only one concrete activity for the entire building, which is FRP. FRP stands for formwork, rebar, and placement of concrete. FRP, concrete work for building. And that's one activity for the entire building. Of course, that's not practical. So we say, okay, let's go to the next level, level 3. And we're going to divide it by floor. We have 20 floors. So that one activity is going to be 20 activities. And each one will be called FRP concrete work, comma, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, and so on. And now we have 20 activities. But we say that's not enough, because we are mixing apples and oranges. And we have 6 different concrete elements, not including, of course, foundation. But on every floor, we have 6 types of, at least 6. It could be suspended slabs of different types. Let's say suspended slabs, beams, columns, shear walls, stairs, elevator shafts, and then those 20 activities will be multiplied by 6 to indicate the type of concrete element. So now we have 120 activities, and each one will say FRP concrete, columns, 3rd floor, shear walls, 5th floor, and so on. But you may say that that's not enough. Let's break it down by the type of work. Don't say FRP, formwork is an activity, rebar is an activity, Placement is an activity, which is true. So we have to multiply that 300 or 120 by 3, and we get 360 activities. To me, that is a good point to stop. But what if somebody said, no, 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 I want each column and each beam to have its own activity? Well, in this case, we have 24 columns multiplied by 360. So we have 8,640 activities, and that's only for columns, all right? Not counting the beams and so on. This way, the project will probably end up with 50,000 activities or so. And I wouldn't go that far. So how far would I go? Well, I have a confidence relationship with the division of the project. What's my objective of dividing those activities? To have a grip on them. And that grip means a confidence in assessing that activity, in knowing the status. If I ask you, if you put the foundation of a huge building as one activity, and I came to you and said, what's the status, Joe, with that activity? Well, it's going to be a very subjective question because you have thousands of operations going on with the foundation. Some of them are done, some of them are behind, some of them are ahead, some of them are not to be done until, not to start until 2 weeks later, and so on. So it's hard to give an accurate answer. So let's divide that foundation into little activities. And then if I ask you, Joe, what's the situation of the spread footings? Well, you can tell me more objectively and more scientifically, oh, they are about 60%. So I would divide the project until I get that confidence. I look at the number of units or days in it, and I said, I have at least 90% confidence that that is true. So that leads me to the last point. Would I have that all activities in the project at the same level of details? Not necessarily. Maybe you have a bigger activity. Let's say we have excavation, and it's very simple. We are excavating 8,000 cubic meters of sand. So I don't have to divide it, while a concrete operation next to it, yes, I have to divide it to a further level of details because I can't get a grip of it. The key here is confidence. Once you feel you're confident with an activity, stop. Don't break it down once. And let's say the confidence is not going to be 100% anyway. Let's put a threshold for us, maybe 80% or 90%. And once you reach that, stop. To me, I can't tell you there is an optimum number, and no one can give you a magic formula that will give you an exact optimum number of activities in your project. It is your feeling as a professional. Don't go too much into tiny activities. That will be a nightmare for administering this project. And don't go in only few. That will be also difficult to manage large activities. And in fact, the optimum number between them lies in your judgment, in how confident are you with those durations, and do you have good control over those activities.